The story begins in a Philadelphia courtroom. Judge Miranda Reynolds stops a trespassing case mid-sentence as she recognizes the defendant, a homeless veteran named Marcus Washington. She whispers his name, her voice trembling. The courtroom is in awe as she immediately recuses herself, explaining that the veteran before her once saved her father's life in Vietnam. This dramatic moment introduces us to Marcus, a 72-year-old homeless man. We learn about the harsh conditions he faced on the streets and how he sought shelter in a condemned building to escape the freezing winter. When police officers, led by the aggressive officer Peterson, found him, they arrested him. Peterson taunts Marcus, calls him a vagrant, and takes his one possession, a tarnished military medal. At the precinct, Marcus meets his public defender, Jessica Chen. She learns he is a veteran and realizes this could help his case. Marcus, however, is more concerned about getting his medal back than the legal charges. He tells Jessica he served in the 173rd Airborne Brigade and explains how the medal connects him to a past where he felt valued. He then relives a flashback to Vietnam, remembering how he carried his wounded commanding officer, Lieutenant Reynolds, through enemy territory for 3 days. The next morning in court, Judge Reynolds asks Marcus for his military service number, which is something she has never done before. When Marcus names his commander, Colonel James Reynolds, the judge's expression changes. She realizes he's the man her father, the colonel, spoke of often, the man who saved his life. She recuses herself, calling Marcus a hero who served his country with distinction and saying it's a shame he stands before her as a homeless man. The case is reassigned to Judge William Hargrove, who has a reputation for being tough on crime. The media attention on Marcus's case explodes as reporters descend on the courthouse. His new judge, William Hargrove, is known for his strict, no-nonsense approach, especially toward Black defendants. The prosecutor, Richard Hoffman, seizes the opportunity to add new charges against Marcus, including assaulting a police officer and possessing stolen property, the medal. During a recess, a woman named Clara Washington Jones bursts into the courtroom. She reveals that she is Marcus's estranged daughter, a social worker at Veterans Affairs, who saw the news report. Their reunion is tense and emotional. They haven't spoken in 15 years. Clara explains that she became estranged after her mother's death when Marcus's PTSD worsened, causing him to become distant and eventually leave. Marcus apologizes, explaining he left because he didn't want his darkness to ruin her life. Clara, now an advocate for her father, discovers a potential conflict of interest. The building Marcus was arrested in is owned by the company of Judge Hargrove's brother-in-law. This information raises suspicions about the new charges and the aggressive prosecution. The trial begins. Officer Peterson takes the stand and fabricates his testimony, claiming Marcus was aggressive and combative. However, Jessica Chen, Marcus's public defender, points out that Peterson's initial police report said nothing about a struggle. She proves that the assault charge was added only after Judge Reynolds' public announcement, undermining Peterson's credibility. Judge Hargrove, who has been paying close attention, is clearly troubled by the inconsistencies in the prosecution's case. He warns Peterson to be truthful and warns against making assumptions about Marcus's military record. As the day ends, Clara notices the judge seems to be struggling with something deeper. She learns that the judge's father, a Lieutenant Robert Hargrove, died in Vietnam. Marcus, recognizing the name, realizes the medal he possesses belongs to the judge's father. The next day, Jessica and Clara present stunning new evidence. They've uncovered military documents revealing a pattern of racial discrimination in the distribution of benefits for Vietnam veterans. They also found the original recommendation for Marcus's Medal of Honor, which had been downgraded. The documents explicitly state the downgrade was for political reasons due to his race. They also obtain Officer Peterson's body camera footage, which completely contradicts his sworn testimony. The video shows Marcus being cooperative, while Peterson roughly handles him and uses racial slurs. Jessica reveals that the abandoned building belongs to a company owned by Judge Hargrove's brother-in-law, a connection the judge did not disclose. Despite the conflict of interest, Marcus asks Jessica not to push for a recusal, stating that he wants the truth to be heard. When the trial resumes, Jessica plays the body camera footage. The courtroom watches in stunned silence as the truth unfolds. The evidence destroys Peterson's credibility. Faced with the overwhelming proof, the prosecutor moves to dismiss all charges, but Marcus refuses. He tells the court this case is no longer just about him. It's about all the veterans who were failed by the system. He insists the trial must continue so the full truth can be exposed. That evening, Marcus meets with Jessica and Clara and reveals a secret he has kept for decades. He tells them that the medal isn't his. It belongs to Judge Hargrove's father, Lieutenant Robert Hargrove. He explains that Lieutenant Hargrove gave him the medal and a letter before sacrificing himself to save his men. Marcus had tried to deliver the medal and letter to the judge's family back in 1975, but was rejected by his mother, who used a racial slur and told him not to contact them again. Unbeknownst to them, Judge Hargrove has heard the story and requests a private meeting with Marcus. Judge Hargrove meets with Marcus and Jessica in his chambers, having been told about the medal and his father's true story. He admits that his mother had always told him his father died in a helicopter crash, with no mention of other soldiers or a rescue. Marcus repeats the story of his father's final act of courage and presents the judge with a silver star. The judge, clearly shaken, says he needs time to process everything and delays the trial. The next day, the trial resumes in a packed courtroom. Judge Hargrove, transformed, addresses his decision to stay on the case, stating that he can no longer be a strict by-the-book judge when the system is fundamentally unequal. The defense then presents witnesses who testify about systemic racism in the military, proving that Marcus's experience was part of a larger, long-term pattern of discrimination against Black veterans. Former Judge Miranda Reynolds testifies about her investigation, confirming that declassified documents show a pattern of racial bias in the awarding of military honors. She explains that Black soldiers were routinely downgraded, regardless of their bravery or their commanding officer's recommendation. As Officer Peterson's testimony unravels, he loses his composure and makes racially charged remarks in the courtroom. Judge Hargrove sharply reprimands him, demonstrating a fundamental shift in his perspective. The prosecutor, seeing the case is lost, once again tries to dismiss all charges, but Marcus refuses. He tells the judge he wants the full trial to continue so the truth about what happened to him and other Black veterans can be heard and become a matter of public record. The following day, the court is packed with spectators and news reporters. The atmosphere is tense with anticipation as Judge Hargrove enters the courtroom. He places a small velvet box containing his father's silver star on his desk, a clear sign of his transformation. Before delivering his verdict, Judge Hargrove speaks directly to the court. He reveals that Marcus gave him his father's medal and told him the true story of how he died. He confesses his shame about his mother's racial prejudice, which led her to reject Marcus. The judge admits that his own judicial philosophy was flawed and that treating people equally within a fundamentally unequal system only perpetuates injustice. He then delivers his ruling, finding Marcus not guilty on all counts. He systematically dismantles the prosecution's case, citing the body camera footage, discriminatory police practices, and the lack of evidence. But the judge's verdict goes further than just the case. In an unprecedented move, he orders an investigation into Officer Peterson's conduct and the police department's discriminatory practices. He also orders a comprehensive review of city policies regarding homeless veterans and forces the Westside Development Corporation to fulfill its contractual obligation to build affordable housing for homeless veterans. Finally, he makes a personal commitment to establish a specialized veterans court to address the unique needs of former service members. The judge holds up his father's silver star and presents it to Marcus, stating that the medal belongs to the man who truly earned it. The verdict sends shockwaves throughout the nation, with major news outlets covering the landmark ruling. Judge Hargrove's recusal and ruling are praised as a monumental step toward justice, while Officer Peterson faces suspension and a thorough investigation into his conduct. The investigation uncovers a history of racial profiling, leading to wider reform in the police department. Inspired by the outcome, former Judge Miranda Reynolds establishes the Reynolds Washington Legal Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping veterans of color access the benefits they were previously denied. The Westside Development Corporation, facing public pressure, partners with veterans advocates to convert its abandoned building into affordable housing for homeless veterans. Marcus finally gets the proper medical and psychological treatment he needs, and the VA, under public scrutiny, expedites his long-delayed benefits. He begins the slow process of healing and rebuilding his relationship with his daughter Clara. The pair find that they can finally face the painful past together. 3 months after the trial, a special ceremony is held at the Philadelphia Veterans Memorial. In front of a large crowd of veterans, activists, and supporters, Marcus is finally awarded the Medal of Honor that was denied to him 55 years earlier. The medal is presented by none other than Judge William Hargrove, who has become an unlikely but powerful ally. In his acceptance speech, Marcus speaks about courage in its many forms: the courage to fight for your country, the courage to acknowledge painful truths, and the courage to change a broken system. The image of Marcus and the judge standing side by side, both holding a medal, becomes an iconic symbol of reconciliation and delayed justice. The dramatic changes sparked by Marcus's case continued to ripple throughout the country. Judge Hargrove, transformed by his encounter with Marcus and the truths revealed during the trial, becomes a leading judicial voice for reform. His Veterans Court model is replicated in jurisdictions across the country, inspiring other judges to re-examine their own approaches to justice. Clara Washington Jones expands her work at the VA, creating specialized programs for elderly veterans of color and ensuring that others like her father won't fall through the cracks of a flawed system. She becomes a powerful advocate for institutional change, using her experience and her father's story to push for better policies and support. Jessica Chen, whose determined legal advocacy brought the case to national attention, becomes a sought-after speaker on addressing historical inequities within the legal system. The medal that connected Marcus and Judge Hargrove is eventually donated to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, where it becomes one of the most visited exhibits. 1 year later, Marcus visits the refurbished apartment building where he once sought shelter. It's now named the Hargrove Washington Veterans Housing and provides safe homes for formerly homeless veterans. As he walks through the halls, he reflects on his journey and how it took a community, a judge, a daughter, lawyers, and activists to bring about real change. He emphasizes that the case wasn't just about one man. It was about all of them recognizing their connection to each other's stories. The story concludes with a powerful reflection on the themes of the trial. It emphasizes that justice delayed is not always justice denied, and that Marcus Washington's journey brought to light a hidden history of systemic racism that impacted generations of veterans. It highlights the transformation of Judge Hargrove, whose personal encounter with an undeniable truth forced him to confront his own biases and rethink his approach to justice. His change of heart demonstrates that even deeply ingrained prejudices can be overcome. It shows how one person's courage to speak the truth can catalyze significant change, leading to reforms in police departments, housing policies, and judicial systems. Ultimately, Marcus's story is a testament to the fact that true heroism is not only found on the battlefield, it is also found in the quiet dignity of a man who, despite decades of mistreatment, maintained his humanity and held on to the truth. The story ends by encouraging the audience to reflect on their own biases and to consider how they can contribute to a more equitable future. It reminds us that healing begins with honesty, and that by acknowledging our shared humanity, we can work together to create a more just society for everyone.